Welcome to the Calm Analytics channel. I'm Boris Tizengauzen. Today is November 9th, and there are a lot of interesting news stories. So in this episode, Kazan, Simferopol, Voronezh, a night of strikes and explosions in Russia. Moscow is being prepared for a real blackout, and Russia is shutting down the internet at home and getting ready for an Iron Curtain. Patriarch Kirill presents Dmitry Medvedev with a very strange award, and Kim Jong-un has shown unprecedented wisdom. You will be absolutely shocked. The president of Colombia is threatening Donald Trump. We'll talk about what will follow and why he's doing this. And also about the Great Terror and how Putin is breaking records even from that terrifying era. So, not only in today's episode, if you're new to this channel, welcome and subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. So, let's start with the direct sanctions on drone forces and Ukrainian drones. Kazan, the Oxyntes plant, one of the largest factories, one of the biggest chemical enterprises in Russia, was once again visited by Ukrainian drones today. The flames can be seen for dozens of kilometers, explosions are heard, the drones have arrived. In general, just the way you like it, this is not the first time this plant, which also serves the Russian military-industrial complex, has been attacked. But that's not all. The village of Gvardeyskoye, not far from Simferopol, in my native occupied Crimea, a strike and detonation at an ammunition depot. Locals heard, and probably are still hearing right now, how everything is beautifully exploding over there. And in Voronezh, there was a strike on CHP-1. Part of Voronezh was left without power. The Kotelny No. 1 district. The turbine section was hit, everything was wrecked. In general, this is a message to Russians. If you want to leave us without power and heat, then you'll get the same in return. And that's not all. Partisans in the city of Stolitomak, Bashkortostan, burned equipment at 3 communication towers, and near Vologda, relay cabinets. That's the kind of partisans we have. But Ukraine, let me remind you, is a land of partisans. A real partisan region, you could say. So we have these traditions. Oh yes. That's why Russians, things will be burning for you both in the rear and not just in the rear. Putin picked the wrong people and the wrong country to attack. I think by now he's already regretted 100 times that he did it. He's just trying to figure out how to get his ball claws out of this war. But many people, by the way, are asking, what about Moscow? Why not cut off the power in Moscow? You know, it's not that easy to cut off power in Moscow. First of all, Moscow is well protected. It's surrounded by several rings of air defense systems, probably the densest air defense deployment there is. In order to cut off power to Moscow, you'd have to take out the entire supply line, which is backed up 2 or even 3 times. So, if you look closely at the map of strikes over the past days and weeks, you'll notice an interesting pattern. That is, the strikes are now targeting the substations that are part of this backup system. But in general, I don't think we need to teach the Hungarians or the drone forces or the GUR or the security service of Ukraine. They'll wait for the most opportune moment. But at the very least, these rings are already being taken out, and that's good news. A big hello to Putin's fans living in Moscow. Meanwhile, a drone attacked in Sweden. I'm reading this and thinking, have the Russians really become that brazen? No, friends. The drone attacked the villa of the Russian delegation, dousing it with paint and some unknown sticky liquid. According to a representative of the Stockholm police, the incident occurred on Saturday at 5:30 in the morning. Members of the Russian delegation noticed the drone and saw it drop a container with paint and an unknown substance, after which they called the police. I have a guess as to what that substance might be, but let's not discuss it on air. In May, the Russian embassy in Sweden had already complained that a drone flying over their building dropped a can of paint. And now, attention, I'm quoting. The Russian embassy in Sweden considers the incident to be especially cynical. It was reported that the drone operators used a glass container, which, when dropped from a significant height, could potentially cause serious injuries to people below. All right, it is true that a glass jar can indeed cause serious injuries if it falls on someone. But what about the Russian missiles that are being launched and that kill innocent Ukrainian civilians, including children and the elderly? They should just sit quietly and keep their mouths shut over there at that embassy. Be grateful you haven't been thrown out of there by the scruff of your neck yet. By the way, friends, just a reminder, we have an important fundraiser for the 1st Medical Battalion, for our combat medics. We are continuing to raise funds for a second Falco ventilator. 202 I vote. We've already raised enough for the first one, so you all are truly awesome. And yes, it's that very same Medbat. The 1st Medical Battalion, which recently successfully evacuated a soldier using the Mali drone system. These images have gone around the world. The soldier had been at his position for over 30 days. And they got him out of there. That Mali traveled more than 60 kilometers. And yes, we contributed to that as well. Together we raised funds for as many as 2 of those Malis. We managed to do that for the 1st Medical Battalion. In short, I tell you every time how awesome you are. For this fundraiser, our medics recorded an address to us, the viewers of this channel.
Апарат штучної вентиляції легень – незамінна річ для надання невідкладної допомоги в умовах бойових дій. Ми в 1-му окремому медичному батальйоні використовуємо спеціальні портативні системи забезпечення для використання у військових умовах. Це найкращий інструмент, але, на жаль, він не призначений для такого навантаження та роботи в безперебійному режимі, яка є в наших умовах зараз. Тому ці системи починають виходити з ладу. Через це ми потребуємо додаткових звичайних стаціонарних апаратів ШВЛ. Залишитися без них не можна, адже це призведе до серйозних наслідків. Вартість одного апарату – 730 тисяч гривень, а всього потреба є у 8. Разом з каналом Бориса Тізенгаузена збираємо на другий ШВЛ для передових хірургічних груп 1-го окремого медичного батальйону. Часу обмаль. Розраховуємо на вашу підтримку.
Medics are truly saintly people. They risk their own lives to save the lives of Ukraine's defenders. Let's help them. There's a link to the fundraiser in the description of this video. There's Mono, there's Private, and there's PayPal for those who want to help from abroad. I see everyone, and I want to say a huge thank you to all. If you can't find the link to the fundraiser, there's also a QR code. You can use it to go to Mono as well. Now let's talk about the swamp filth. We've talked about saintly people. Now let's talk about the swamp filth. Patriarch Kirill awarded Medvedev the Order of Dmitry Donskoy First Class. So I thought, let me look up what kind of order this is, what it's for. Well, it's an order of the Russian Orthodox Church. It's quite large. On Medvedev, it covers half his chest, a big rectangular diamond-shaped thing. Medvedev looked as pleased as a samovar, his face bright red, absolutely delighted. So the grounds for being awarded this order. Who can be awarded it? Clergy, military commanders, World War II veterans, and other individuals who have shown courage in defending the fatherland. Well, one wants to ask, of which war is Dmitry Medvedev a veteran? The Second Liquor and Vodka War, or what? Or maybe the 4th intergalactic one, when he, like a liquid Terminator after a shot of vodka, he gets scattered around the rooms in pieces like this. That's where he's fighting, somewhere out there. By the way, Medvedev showed up to the award ceremony in his blue tunic. He has a new look. That is, this is the costume of Dr. Evil, which he snatched from the children's world after all. Roskomnadzor will be able to shut down the internet in Russia. There is a government decree, and this document has appeared on the government website. It comes into force on March 1st, 2026, and will remain in effect until 1932. So according to this decree, Roskomnadzor and the Ministry of Digital Development will gain full control over the Russian internet and, together with the FSB, will be able to shut it down. Switch it and isolate the Russian language segment of the internet. So yes. Let me remind you that, as it turns out, there hasn't been mobile internet in some regions of Russia for several months already. That's what people from Russia are writing to me. By the way, Putin doesn't use the internet, so apparently Russians don't need it either. I think you know who is the happiest about this right now? Those communist pensioners who still lay flowers at the monument to Stalin. So there are people like that, and as it turns out, there are quite a few of them. That's right, we don't need this Western internet, it only brings problems. People lived in the USSR without the internet, and everything was fine. There was the newspaper Pravda, everything was according to the standards, only truth in it, everything about the party, and there were just 3 TV channels. The internet only brings problems. Otherwise, you see, these young people might even start thinking and analyzing. No. If we never lived well, there's no point in starting now. You know, it's like they lived in barracks their whole lives and it was fine. At least they lived together in harmony. Yeah. 2 days ago was an important date for these pensioners. November 7th, the day of the Great October Socialist Revolution, the main state holiday of the Soviet Union until 1991. I came across some videos, and for some reason I remembered videos from Russia and Belarus. There, these pensioners always have really interesting hats, all different kinds. Where they get them from is a mystery. This time, all their hats had sickles and hammers on them, some were caps, and they had carnations and red flags. These wild pensioners were marching and insanely rejoicing with all these communist symbols, and they were shouting songs about the raging storms of attack. Those who are older probably remember the poems about the red day on the calendar. Truly red. I looked up the statistics from that so-called wonderful, of course I say that with heavy irony and in quotation marks, time. According to the available data on the Gulag system from the year 1918 to 1956, up to as many as 30 million people, depending on the estimate, passed through the extensive network of camps, prisons, and special settlements. Of those, up to 3 million died. And if you take into account not only the camps, but also various executions, deportations, famine, special settlements, and so on, then the total losses from Stalin's repressions amount to between 12 and 15 million people. These are simply staggering numbers. 1 million people were executed under political charges. These are the official NKVD data from 1921 to 1953. Putin, by the way, apparently has decided to repeat this bloody record. He has already killed over 1 million Russians in this war. In the Gulag camps, from hunger, disease, and so on, yes, as I already mentioned, 3 million died. And if we also take into account the deportations, the kulaks, who were those who knew how to work the land, the peoples along the Volga, the Crimean Tatars, the Chechens, that's another 6 million who were deported. When I read about the history of the deportation in Crimea, people were literally forced into boxcars with just the clothes on their backs and a single bag, and for several days, cold, hunger, it didn't matter, they shivered in those conditions with small children and so on. Many died, a huge number perished, and the peak of the terror was in 1937 to 1938. I'm just reminding you, this is where Russia is heading now. They're already quietly testing the waters for bringing back the death penalty. In 1937 to 1938, during the Great Terror, almost 2 million people were arrested in that period, and 700,000 of them were executed. The statistics are horrifying. They calculated up to 1,500 people were executed per day. Back then, when they were coming up with ways to get rid of so-called enemies of the people, by the way, all those who voted for it were later repressed themselves. At that time, the head of the NKVD, Yezhov, declared that if an extra 1,000 people were executed during this operation, there would be absolutely nothing wrong with that. Act more boldly, arrest them first and sort it out later, Yezhov said. There's your red letter day. That's why when I see these crazy old women and men, and sometimes even young people, marching with red flags, I just want to... But these are probably the very descendants of those who moved into the apartments of the executed and repressed. Do you remember that scene when people were moving in? I remember it from childhood. When a family moves into an apartment, clearly one that someone just recently left. As for shutting off the internet, well, people in North Korea somehow live without the internet. Yeah, well, they do have a few permitted websites there. By the way, it's no joke that, for example, you could be executed for watching Western movies or listening to Western music. It's not a joke, it's absolutely real. And since we're talking about North Korea, I just remembered that I haven't visited the Korean Central News Agency in a while. Now, that's what you call a cringe factory. If you ever want to scramble your brain a little, to have your mind scatter and then come back together, just visit that site. So, what is it? The Korean Central News Agency. It features all sorts of stories. Stories about Kim Jong-un, his father, his grandfather, the revolutionary history of North Korea, how they defeated everyone and will defeat everyone, and so on. And there, from every little thing, like a sneeze or a blink from Kim Jong-un, they create a grand heroic tale. And I've brought you one of those stories, straight from there, not made up. The story is called, first of all, this is from the section Revolutionary Episode. The story is called The Bench in the School Corridor. One day in May 2012, the respected comrade Kim Jong-un visited the newly built Changjon Elementary School. While inspecting the school, Kim Jong-un said that benches with coat racks should be installed on one side of the corridor so that students could hang up their wet jackets. And Kim Jong-un said that if benches with coat racks were installed in the corridor, then, attention, students would be able to sit on them. And he also said that in order to properly make benches with coat racks, it is necessary to find out the distance between the classroom doors to determine how many benches are needed. My God, a genius. He's simply a genius of our time. And all these people who run around with him and write all this down in their notebooks, this is what they're recording, his simply brilliant ideas. And looking up to Comrade Kim Jong-un, who has flawlessly built a modern school so that our children can spread their wings in learning, envying no one in the world. Once again, we deeply felt the world of Comrade Kim Jong-un's warm love for future generations. My God, just listen. With Lukashenko, you could write, I don't know, 10 volumes like this a day. He's always crawling around some cowshed, finding out about pig iron yields, scolding everyone. Why is it that you don't have this or that here, huh? You've run the whole country into the ground, and now you're just riding around the collective farms telling stories about something. There's another story, a brilliant one, called The Height, the Step. I think you've already guessed what the story is about, right? So, during a visit to some administrative center, Kim Jong-un was climbing the stairs of a residential building and suddenly stopped. Looking at the staircase, he said that the last step was a little higher than the others. And everyone was shocked because, well, they hadn't noticed it. But Comrade Kim Jong-un, who cares about making sure the residents of the buildings don't experience even the slightest inconvenience, paid close attention even to the difference in height of a single step. I think, first of all, he crawled up the steps. Kim Jong-un, in my opinion, is the only overweight person in North Korea. Well, maybe someone else from his family, the only one who actually eats properly there. Not just properly, but let's put it this way, stuffs himself. One of the Russian diplomats who traveled on Kim Jong-un's super-armored train said that he would drink champagne two-fisted there. They bring him crystal lobsters. In short, Kim Jong-un is definitely not starving. By the way, friends, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. It really does help promote the channel. And don't forget to ring the bell to make sure you don't miss any episodes. So subscribe. Peskov showed up without getting dusty. Russia and China do not conduct nuclear tests, Peskov says. He stated that neither Russia nor China are doing anything like that. He noted that Putin did not give any orders to prepare for nuclear tests, and in general emphasized the need to first assess whether they are appropriate. And he also reminded, by the way, that Putin said he would only conduct tests if someone else does it first. First of all, why is Peskov speaking for China? China can answer for itself, not Moscow. Secondly, why are all of you in the Kremlin getting so nervous? All week you've been saying, no, you misunderstood us. That's not what Putin meant. You've been scaring everyone with nuclear weapons constantly, and you keep doing it. Or maybe you didn't expect that Trump wouldn't play by your rules. He might actually test nuclear weapons now. We'll see. Then Putin will really have to conduct a test. You see, it's already like a cartoon. You can't even make a cartoon about the Burevestnik. I mean, I don't know, maybe some new land will just sink underwater, or maybe somewhere like Kamchatka. Here's another important piece of news. In the context of the fact that we've kind of forgotten about Alabuga, Alabuga is a special economic zone in Russia where the main factory for producing Shahed strike drones, called Garan in Russia, is located. Child labor is used there as well as labor from citizens of other countries. They lure them there under various pretexts like coming to study in Russia. And then it turns out they assemble these Shaheds there in Alabuga. So members of parliament in Malawi, a country in southeastern Africa, intend to demand a report from their government on how girls from their country ended up being employed in drone production at this very Alabuga. And we cannot stay silent about this because it concerns the lives of our citizens. Those who help them move for academic scholarships or job opportunities need to be found. And they really were told that they would go to Russia to study, that they would receive a scholarship there. But when they arrived, they were locked up. I remind you, this is a special economic zone, so there are strict regulations, like in prison. Entry and exit are by access cards, you're not allowed to publish anything anywhere, and so on and so forth. In general, the agency that conducted this entire investigation claims that these women who were hired are working at the factory, manufacturing drones instead of studying. That's why I'm bringing this up and talking about it now. Sooner or later, something will hit that Alabuga facility. And it will be a serious hit. Who will be there at that moment is another question. And it's worth clarifying separately. There's also a college there, and students are present as well. To all those students, no one is forcing you to assemble drones to kill Ukrainians. And if missiles do end up hitting, everyone there will get what they deserve. That college is being promoted with special benefits, advertised by all sorts of bloggers who, by the way, it would be good to have a word with and at least get them onto sanctions lists. It's a closed-type college, all phones are checked, there are shifts at the factories, and then by contract they're required to work at these enterprises. Otherwise, there's a huge fine. Basically, it's like a cult. When I watch the videos that these students post from there, I get the feeling there's some kind of requirement to promote it. They select a group of students who will make these TikToks, videos, and so on. It's honestly just a cult. You know, when they all smile like that, a bit crazy, like little psychopaths. So something is definitely going to happen. And by the way, now Donald Trump is being threatened. I thought, wow, that's something. Who's that bold? And that's the president of Colombia, Gustavo Petro. He said the following: if the golden eagle attacks the condor, it will awaken the spirit of the jaguar. Let me explain. I quote, this is what the legend says. If the golden eagle, which refers to the USA, attacks the condor, it will awaken the jaguar. In other words, if Trump attacks Venezuela, he will awaken Colombia. Don't wake the jaguar, I warn Rubio and Trump. Be careful. You are stepping onto the homeland of Bolivar, where peasant armies with spears defeated the mighty Spanish and French forces. The peoples of the Caribbean are used to hurricanes and can unleash another one, Petro said. It's true, you really can unleash another one. And here's what another legend says. If you cover up drug trafficking for a long time, together with your buddy... So, Maduro is the condor, right? If you set up the trafficking, you might awaken the Reaper, a kind of drone that will come and neatly blow to quarks, the jaguar, the condor, the capybara, and all the other friends from this group. Previously, Trump called Petro an illegal drug trafficker. He used those exact words, to which Petro responded by calling Colombia David and America Goliath, a Goliath that can quite well be defeated. And recently information has surfaced, by the way, I mentioned this in the previous episode, that Maduro is apparently ready to make a deal, ready to quietly step down in exchange for security guarantees and amnesty. But under Petro, the one who says, "Why are you attacking us?" Maybe you should stop talking about eagles and jaguars and actually start fighting drug trafficking instead of covering it up, because under Petro, objectively, record levels have been documented of coca and the potential production of what is made from it. These are UN data. A significant part of the flow goes through Venezuela, then through the Caribbean to Europe via Spain, Belgium, the Netherlands, and to the US by sea, and through Central America and Mexico. In general, the UN confirms Venezuela's role as a transit hub. So, what's the problem? Well, and as for the homeland of Bolivar, it would be better to keep quiet about that too. By UN, I meant Simon. Bolivar is a national hero of South America, a leader in the struggle for independence from Spain, a general, a revolutionary, an ideologue of the liberation of the Spanish colonies, and played a key role in the independence of Venezuela, Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, and Bolivia. Bolivia is named in his honor. So, by the way, Bolivia was actually lucky that they only used part of Simón Bolívar's name and surname in the name of the country, because his full name and surname sound like this: Simón José Antonio de la Santísima, Trinidad Bolívar de la Concepción y Ponte Palacios y Blanco. Yes, welcome to our country. By the way, today I logged into Facebook to upload a couple of videos. Sometimes I cut episodes into short clips and post them on TikTok, Facebook, and so on. I also check in to see what young people are up to stay in the loop and understand what their modern slang means. So I logged into Facebook and they have this thing called memories, and they pop up. They show you a photo from this day 5 years ago, this day 10 years ago, and so on. And so it showed me some photos from 2020, a bunch of pictures from live broadcasts from different TV channels, some talk shows. It all feels like a different life. Lately, I've completely stopped doing live broadcasts. With very, very rare exceptions, maybe once every 6 months I'll do a live broadcast. I've pretty much turned down all TV appearances. I don't see the point. I don't understand why I should waste my time. We have our own real media here with you. It's already huge. 462,000 on the main channel. Over 15,000 already on the English language channel. So, in general, everything is great here for us. but people do ask me to join in. They write to me from time to time. There are even offers to launch my own show on some good channels. On big channels, on well-known channels, I don't get it. I don't see the point. It seems to me that our cozy channel here with you is so cool, lively, and active. We're doing the most important things here. Back when I was just starting to get invited to live broadcasts, I thought, wow, that's something. What a big deal. What a milestone to get on TV. One of my first appearances was with Yevgeny Kiselyov. The studio wasn't even ready yet. We were sitting in a glass room, builders were walking around us, and we were talking. That was one of my first TV broadcasts. I was so awkward there. I'd get asked something, and I thought that if I just sat there for 10 seconds in silence, he'd stop asking the question I got stuck on. I don't know. It was a really fun time. Later, I taught a few people how to get on TV. Actually, it's not that hard. I even started recording a course right before the war about how to get on TV. Maybe I'll release it after the war somehow. Then there was some big talk shows, you know, those messy ones where everyone's arguing like, wow. And before the war, a big show launched with me as the main character. They built a studio for it at the Dovzhenko Film Studio. I would put politicians in cubes, their voices were changed, they couldn't see who their opponent was. With the altered voice, nothing was clear, and the audience was also guessing. And then they would argue with each other in there. And then when the cubes opened, it could turn out they were actually from the same party. But they would answer the same question differently, one way or another. So in general, it was pretty cool. There was a show, but yeah, that was right before the war. And there was this kind of race with all those TV broadcasts. I remember up to 10 broadcasts a day. And live appearances, and you had to go to the studio. It was a real race. And now I realize that quantity doesn't always turn into quality. Do one show, but do it well, with full commitment. Be honest, do it conscientiously. You don't need to listen to the host there. Oh, Boris, breaking news, like, I don't know, something just hit in Russian Voronezh. What do you think about that? Well, I think it's awesome, honestly. It's just super. But that's also news that fits into the context, and it could be anything at all. So this race from studio to studio is an endless pursuit. It's just a race. And also, you know, television broadcasts never give you a sense of belonging. By the way, people write to me repeatedly saying, after the show, it feels like we just sat down and had a chat with you. So what am I getting at? I'm really glad to have you all. You are all awesome. Take care of yourselves, friends. Take care of your loved ones. Subscribe to the channel and let's support our combat medics, our guardian angels. The link to the fundraiser is in the description of this video. Wishing us all a peaceful day, and glory to Ukraine.